Everybody, sorry for the delay. We were on a busy schedule this trip. It's great to be here at the Orchard School in San Jose. My name is Tom Pike. I am the Congressman's District Director. And today we're going to have an open forum focused on education. Before we begin, if you're able to stand, please do for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm just going to quickly outline what we're going to do today. First, we're going to be honoring both a local teacher and several students. Representative Khanna will give us an update about what's going on in D.C. I'll very quickly explain the open forum process, and then we'll get right into the conversation. We'll wrap it up a little bit after noon. I wanted to say thanks to, we do have the presence of both the San Jose PD and Capitol Police here. Thank you very much. Maybe give them a round of applause. Thank you. And I would like to, by the way, if you see me struggling, the podium here is kind of rolling all over the place. I would like to welcome some elected officials that are here today. We have your local San Jose City Council member, David Cohen. Yeah, there we go. From the Fremont Union High School District is Trustee Naomi Nakano Matsumoto. Director of Valley Water is Rich Santos. From Fremont Unified, the trustee, Diane Jones. NEA Director is Matthew Segman. You're going to have to get your... What, how do you spell it?
Seymour.
Seymour. Seymour. Okay. Sorry, I'm only working with a hand over here. From Mission College, we have Dean Jacqueline Escajeda. From the Santa Clara County Office of Education, we have the supervisor, Dr. Marianne Dewan. We also have Vice Mayor of Sunnyvale, Murali Srinivasan. And also from FUHSD is Trustee Rosa Kim. Any other elected officials? Great, thank you. And now we have several constituents here to honor, and here is Representative Khanna.
I'm very, very pleased to recognize Mr. Henry Robinson. You know, Mr. Robinson, if you want to come up, Mr. Robinson has a remarkable story. He was in Selma in 1965 with John Lewis. And on the bridge, where Edmund Pettus Bridge, where Mr. Lewis was beaten, Mr. Robinson was part of it. And one of the great honors, it was Mr. John Lewis's 84th birthday and recently, and one of the great honors of my life was to write a joint op-ed with him about the ties between the Gandhi movement and the movement for civil rights. But Mr. Robinson participated in that, and he moves to the Bay Area. He goes to Santa Clara, Stanford, is a teacher for social studies, civic education in Milpitas, and then has also served in the Milpitas Police Department. And we are just very, very lucky for 53 years of public service to recognize Henry Robinson. So software application competition, and this year 374 members participated. There were 50 applications. Our finalists are here today, and I'm going to call up both our runners-up and our winners. Cindy Chow, Shruti Ladewala, who are 2 runner-ups with great apps, and our winner, Talis Leong, which is an app that uses AI to bring out the artist in all of us. Great job, kids. I don't know if any of them are here. Wonderful. Congratulations.
All right, sorry for that. We're on the run here. Today is going to be different than our usual town hall format. Instead of a structured Q&A setting, we'll have more of an open forum to discuss ways that Congress can support education professionals and promote greater economic opportunity through education. We figured that if any group could self-regulate a discussion, it would be a group of educators. So we're going to try it with you all first and go from there. I think we'll have some more focused town halls in the future. If we have time towards the end, we'll open it up to all questions, but we did want to focus on education. So feel free to raise your hand when we get to the open forum, provide your comments, personal testimonies, raise questions or issues, whatever you would like the congressman to be aware of or to discuss with you. We'll try to get microphones around the room in an orderly fashion. We have, over here we have Kip with Manish and Sean, our interns, and then in the middle we have Yvonne with Ebby and Yasmin, and on the left is Chris. So I would just say, raise your hand and they'll come over to you and we'll have a conversation. Congressman?
Thank you. Well, I appreciate very much the turnout and appreciate all our great educators, our teachers, our support staff, our school board members being here. This is really an open forum to understand what we should be doing. I had actually a meeting both with Randy Weingarten, who's the president of AFT, and we did a great podcast for those who are interested on AI and the impacts of AI on education, and with President Pringle of NEA, and we talked a lot about a tour that she's going to be leading to some of the school districts that don't have enough resources and how to create more educational equity. But this is really, I mean, I can talk about some of the initiatives in Congress, but I want to first open it up because the purpose of this is really to hear from you about what more you think this community, our schools need. And it can be anything in terms of resources, it can be about technology, it can be about some of the book bans, it can be about some of the challenges that we've seen. There was an awful case of a trans student in Oklahoma who was basically beaten to death because of the bullying. I mean, really, it could be any issue that is on your mind in this community. So education is so important to our district. And I wanted to really hear from all of you so that I can then, and our team can take those issues up, both in our community and in Washington. So who's going to start us off? Because I know it's not a shy group.
We can start over here, Congressman.
Okay.
I got Richard, he's from Sunnyvale, and he has a question on mathematics in high school.
Good morning. Glad to see you all. I have my wife, has been for 12 years involved in credit recovery, which is a math program for students that struggle with math, and also in the AVID program, which is a great program for B-level students and helping them prepare to go to college. The problem that she raises frequently is that the math required by the state includes some fairly sophisticated things like the Pythagorean theorem, and she would like to see the state have a practical math alternative for those students that struggle with some of the higher levels of math. And so I'm here to ask the educators to talk and think about whether there isn't an opportunity for the people who are not into the more advanced math, the higher level algebra, to do a really better job with an alternative math program that includes practical financial math and a lot of other math that they need to have to go through life. So anything, Congressman, that you can do to help at the state level, I would really appreciate seeing that, and anything we can do more locally to get this state curriculum requirement modified for better serving our students would be great. I also want to point out that there is Saul Khan of the Khan Academy has come out with an AI-based Amigo program that helps with math, but doesn't give you the answer. It coaches you, which is much like what my wife does individually with students. The key is it costs the school $4 per month per student to pay for the AI computer resources. There's no profit in that. That's what it actually costs the Khan Academy to support a student that's using the program on a monthly basis. So it's an opportunity to get some federal and state funding to the schools to help them use some of these AI-based opportunities to improve math studies. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I certainly think that we need more practical education on math and on a pathway to people learning the Pythagorean theorem in other places. I mean, I think every student is capable of learning algebra if it's taught in a way that is appropriate and interesting. And you know, some of the folks, there's a program in San Francisco where Ollie, I forget his last name, but is actually teaching young kids their algebra in a very, very creative and successful way. And we should be using all the tools that teachers have to be able to do that, and recognize that math and science are critical to the development in a modern economy of just having the tools to be able to thrive, no matter what job someone is going to be doing.
Congressman, we have Ken from Fremont with a question on transparency in state testing.
And maybe say a little bit about yourself, so I just know if you're an educator, teacher, school board, or whatever.
Good morning. My name is Ken Chu. I teach in Milpitas Unified for 20 years. I also live in Fremont, so you represent me professionally and personally, so good morning. I brought my son's 4th grade CAS test score. I don't know if I can give you presents, but this is what I have for you. As a parent, it's very hard to understand. As a teacher, I've asked many times what it really means. So my overlying concern is we're over-testing our children. I don't foresee us extending the school year 20 days, but with the 180 days we have, we just make our kids stare at screens way too much. And we can get into the whole, like, well, teachers need to be held accountable, kids need to be held accountable, parents, like, I understand this game, but just this specific test, like, he missed 11 points on math from a perfect. Does that mean he got one wrong? Like, why can't it just be out of a scale out of 100? They don't tell you how many questions were given, they don't tell you what was right. It's just a 4-digit number that we're just supposed to trust in whoever the government contracted this out. So this is where I'm a little concerned about. Just kids are more than just a number and a data point. And if we think about like incarceration, 70% of all incarcerated people can't read past 4th grade. And I own some of that. Each day of my years in public ed, I own that too. So I'm part of that problem too, I'm part of that solution. So just I would like more transparency as a parent and for educators, like, why do we do this? What is it for? I want kids to know the truth about, it's not just to help property values in, Mission San Jose and stuff like that. I'm just being real with everybody here, so, thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and I completely agree with you that while proficiency, of course, in math and reading and writing is important, that can't just be measured by test scores. And we've moved to an over-reliance on standardized testing and testing, and it's one put a lot of pressure on young kids who, when they are talking to me, often talk about mental health and well-being is one of their top concerns, and we need to be very mindful of not having our young kids feel the kinds of pressure and stress that they often feel in our district. And we also have to realize, as all of you know as educators, that creativity and persistence and resilience and creativity are often more indications of being a contributing member of a society, of a family, of a community, than simply the mastery of hard skills. That's not to say that you shouldn't know arithmetic and multiplication and algebra and even calculus, and that we shouldn't have some form of testing, but we can't have an over-reliance on that. And so I think you're right to bring that up, and it certainly there should be a transparency on what is being tested, why it's being tested, and a balance in that. And I appreciate your raising that.
Congressman Diane of Fremont has a question on a tax on public education.
Thank you. I'm Diane Jones from Fremont Unified. I'm a trustee there. As you know, I'm sure you're aware, public education is under attack. And our educators, our trustees, and our vulnerable students are on the front line of culture wars. And I'm grateful that you mentioned the student in Oklahoma, because we know what the outcome of this can be. It's devastating. My own oldest child is a transgender high school math teacher, and I fear for their safety every day that they're in the classroom. We've seen what the blueprint is for the plans if extremists win elections. We've seen the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 and what they plan to do to public education if the administration turns over in the next election cycle. And I'm wondering what you and your colleagues can do in Washington to help protect public education from these attacks, because I'm fearful about what we're going to see in this next election cycle, and I feel like there must be something that we can all do to try to protect public education.
I appreciate that very much. Let me ask you something, because I don't, and this may just be my ignorance. Is the Moms for Liberty group, have they come into this area?
We've seen already one district locally that ran the pride flag. We have seen Moms for Liberty affiliated groups showing up to districts asking for book bans.
In our area?
We've seen them recruiting and training candidates for office. I had a Moms for Liberty candidate running against me in the last election cycle, and it was scary. My husband and I had to increase our home security. My kids had to be careful. My oldest was a target by this candidate who was posting about me and my child in experiences across the country. And I'm a school board trustee. I hardly make any money at this. I don't have security details. And we're all at risk. We're all at risk. And I feel like we need help in a very critical way.
I hear that, and I appreciate it very much, because the public education, I'm a product of public schools. I went to public school in Pennsylvania, outside Philadelphia. And to me, public school education, which is 90% of where kids go, and that's the reality of the statistics, is key to democracy. And the reason it's key to democracy is that there has to be a certain place where we get a common vocabulary, where we learn a common history, where we learn common respect. And if everyone were to self-select into their own school to be with their own people like them and their own types of curriculum, we lose that ability to have a common vocabulary in this country, across race, across gender, gender, across sexual orientation, across class. And so at a time where we need the public school probably more than ever before, where we don't have that common vocabulary, the public school is under assault. And it's under assault precisely by people who don't want some of the same democratic aspirations. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that those folks who are attacking democratic norms or attacking democratic institutions are also attacking the public school. And if we don't have a strong public school, how do you know or educate people to see misinformation online? The amount of young people who I meet who see something online and then they say, okay, that's the truth. And I said, you know, this is a gap in education, in public education. So what we need to do, I think those of us who are in elective office need to talk more about our own experience in public education. I'm going back to Pennsylvania. There was a reporter who wants to track down my 9th grade and 10th grade English and social studies teachers and wants to talk to them and the influence they had on my own upbringing. And I think we need to be personal about talking about the teachers who shaped us, the public schools that shaped us, the reason that we are where we are. I had a very extraordinary education afterwards at University of Chicago and Yale, but the people who have influenced me most weren't my professors. They were these 9th and 10th grade teachers. Some of the professors were candidly more brilliant, but they didn't inspire me in the way that those teachers inspired me to pursue public service. And so the question is, how do we uplift each of us? It doesn't even have, all of us are sort of leaders in our community. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. How do we start to talk about what teachers, what public school educators meant for us? And by the way, they're not just the teachers. It could be a counselor. It could be a nurse. It could be someone on the support staff. It could be a bus driver who encouraged a person to continue to come to school. We all have stories about how we have been touched by public schools. And I think too often we aren't talking about it in an aspirational way. And then we need to stand up against the assault on our public teachers. I understand that our teachers are under incredible pressure, as is our school board members, and in being attacked in ways for assigning books, for talking about equality. And we need to have their backs. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have this town hall, is to let people know that as you're a member of Congress, I do have your back in standing up for values of equality and respect and dignity for all people in our community.
Hi, Congressman. I'm with a student named Amon from Fremont. He has a question on civic participation.
Hi, Representative Khanna. Hope you're doing well. So yeah, I'm a sophomore at Mission San Jose High School up in Fremont. And at Mission San Jose High School, as well as many other high schools in Fremont, a lot of the students are really focused towards STEM, science, mathematics, kind of that area of academics. And I think that's a good thing, obviously, but it's gone to a point where students don't care about anything else except for STEM. I noticed that there's no talk about what's happening in the world. There's no talk about politics, what's even happening within our own town. And I find that as something that's really concerning. I've gone to, even with some of my other friends, start a civics club at my school to try to get students more interested in what's happening in our city and what's happening in our nation. And the most common piece of feedback I've gotten from students who don't attend the club is that there's no benefit for them to come to the civics club. So, I'm also working towards my Eagle Scout right now. I know the value in doing a lot of volunteer and service work in our community. So I just wanted to ask you, what's being done at the national level to make sure students are learning about what's happening in our country, and what can we do as citizens at the local level to make sure everyone gets the experience of civic participation?
That's great. I future candidate for Congress. I think it's terrific that you are passionate about civic education. There's no higher calling, in my view. I mean, I'm biased, but there's no higher calling than the participation in civic and political life in America. We have a great responsibility as citizens, and it's on our burden, on us, to uphold the sacrifices of people like John Lewis, to protect and expand our democracy. And that is a obligation every American is born with, and every American has to fulfill. And there's never a time in American history that civic obligation is more important than today, when our country is so polarized, when our country is so distraught with anger, and where there are forces who don't believe in the democratic way and norms. So if ever there were a time for more young people to get engaged, it is now. But even in a more instrumental sense of a person's career, and I can tell you this, having dealt with a lot of the technology leaders in Silicon Valley, you will never become a CEO or a leader of these big institutions if you don't understand how to deal with Congress, if you don't understand how to deal with issues of race, if you don't understand how to deal with issues of labor, if you don't understand how to deal with the climate. When you're leading a company, when you're leading an organization, it's not just about being the best at solving an equation or code, though that matters. You have to understand how to deal with people. You have to understand the role of an organization in society. And so I think that people who are isolating themselves from civic participation are limiting, ultimately, their growth as leaders. Because when you're a leader even in a company, you have to have all of the skills of participation. So I think your participation will serve you well in whatever field you choose.
Congressman, we have Nicole from San Jose with a question on student-teacher pay.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for having this, and I find this very inspiring. And thank you for everything that the student just said. I teach at CUSD. I am in middle school, and I've been a mentor teacher for many years. And one of the things I would like to see happen to encourage more people to get into the profession is for them to have pay when they're student teachers, because you have these folks that are having to teach, having to do schoolwork, and unless they have the luxury of not teaching, it is something that will be a barrier to inviting people that want to be a part of the profession to become part of the profession. So I don't know if that has to happen at a state level or the federal level, but I definitely know it's a door. But thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you, Nicole. I completely agree with you. I mean, we should probably have federal and state funding for student teachers to provide funding. But we also, in this area, in my view, need teacher housing, and we need to figure out how do we get affordable workforce housing. When people think of affordable housing, often they think of it just the people around the house. But we have a situation here. I said to some of my friends at Google and Apple, who's going to teach your kids? Who's going to clean their teeth? Who's going to do their services? I mean, you have to have a workforce that doesn't have to come from an hour and a half away. And when you look at surveys in the school district, the Fremont Union School District or Cupertino School District, teacher satisfaction often is very, very high, and yet they're often say, do you see yourself here in 5 years? And they say no. And the reason is because of this cost of living. People can't afford to raise a family here on a teacher's salary. That is very sad. And so we need a comprehensive approach to increasing teacher pay, not just for students, but we need teacher housing. We need to make sure that teachers can afford to live in a community like ours and really treat them with the respect that they deserve as helping educate the future generations in our nation.
Hi, David of San Jose has a question on education tax.
Microphone security. Thank you, Congressman Khanna. I'd like to belatedly thank you for sponsoring Representative Bush's, co-sponsoring Representative Bush's ceasefire resolution for your recent work in Michigan and for holding these meetings in which thank you for your bravery. So I'm from the Midwest. I'm always concerned about value, and especially whether my tax dollars are being used
attacked by the Hamas troops, and some 1,400 Israelis were killed. I would like to know how that could have happened, because my tax dollars are helping fund Israel's intelligence apparatus, which, to its credit, is one of the best in the world. Israel had warnings from Egypt from its own border spotters, and it intercepted a year in advance of Hamas plans. So your take on the plan is to explain how my tax dollars scaled on that occasion. Now, getting more to the point, between October 7th and mid-December, the U.S. reportedly shipped some 15,000 U.S. made bombs to Israel. And as of mid-December, and I apologize for my information to this data, Israel has dropped 29,000 bombs, munitions, shells on Gaza. Nearly half of them gun bombs that indiscriminately killed, and those bombs haven't been named because I don't pay for them. And the money that was used for those bombs was not being participation or other things for the I apologize. Anyway, I think we've probably got the gist of that. So what have those tax dollars accomplished? Well, the destruction in Gaza has been described as unprecedented in modern times. You know some of the numbers. 30,000 Gazans killed, 11,000 of them children. Those bombs have the names of those children on them. Nearly 70%. What I'd like to know is why we're spending this money to cause such death and destruction when it unequivocally used here benefit children, not only American children, but children around the world.
Well, I appreciate your comment and your questions. Your first question about why there was an intelligence failure really needs to be directed at Netanyahu, but the reality is that I think he pulled out troops at the Gaza border to help some of the settlers in the West Bank to expand settlements. And my sense when the investigations are done is that history will not judge him well on the very basic duty of protecting his own people. I mean, it's one thing that we were not able to anticipate 9/11. That's a hard thing to anticipate, that someone is going to fly in planes into the World Trade Center. But it shouldn't have been that hard to anticipate that Israel at the Gaza border could be vulnerable, and the decision to pull out troops really was a dereliction of duty. I have come out for a permanent ceasefire and a release of all the hostages. My view is that, of course, the October 7th attack was a heinous terrorist attack, and the people who were responsible should be held accountable, but that we cannot have the kind of bombing of women and children and destruction of innocent life in Gaza that has taken place, and is now 1/4 facing famine and starvation. And so I have been for a permanent ceasefire and release of hostages. I have been for the renewal of aid to Gaza, for the economic development of Gaza, for a two-state solution in the region. And I voted no on the recent $17 billion blank check to Netanyahu for those reasons.
Here, I'm with Michelle from Fremont.
Hi, Michelle.
And she
Michelle and I go back to the Obama days. Michelle was one of the original volunteers for Barack Obama.
Michelle has a question on Social Security, right? Social Security reform.
Thank you. I'm here to urge you to be our champion by getting behind the efforts to fix the Social Security system that unfairly disadvantages teachers and other public employees in 16 states, including California. I know that H.R. 82, I believe, has finally made it to the House floor, but I think that only fixes part of the situation. For teachers like me who worked in the private sector for half of our career, I am not entitled, because I'm a teacher, to all of my Social Security benefits. And we need to go beyond that, because for teachers like me who lost their husbands or their spouses, I am not entitled to any of his Social Security benefits because I'm a teacher. If I was in any other profession, I would be entitled to all of that. And I'm just asking for no special treatment, but give me the benefit that I'm entitled to because I worked in the public sector and then also because my husband worked in the public sector. Thank you.
I appreciate you sharing that and sharing your personal loss. And of course, knew your husband and was a real loss when he passed. Look, the windfall exemption provision it needs to be repealed. I mean, the reality is that we don't do this for any other profession, where if you're in the private sector, then you want to go teach, then somehow with the windfall exemption provision, you don't get the full Social Security that you earned. You know, let's say you go work in the restaurant business, you do that for 10 years, then you go teach, but you're accumulating Social Security, then the government basically takes away the Social Security that you have accumulated or your spouse has accumulated if you go teach. It's almost a disincentive to go teach. And it's not just for teachers, it's also for firefighters, for police, for other public service employees. There's a bill that John Lawson has, which would get rid of the windfall exemption provision, which would expand Social Security. And I have been pushing that when we were in the Congress last time to get this for a vote. And there are a few Democrats who are not for it because they don't want to be for the expansion of some of the Social Security benefits. I said to someone, I said, you know, we all know that President Biden is a bit older, so why doesn't he use that as an advantage to be the champion of Social Security? The one place that he'd be good politically for him, you know, he'd be trusted. So I'm pushing that we get this thing to a vote, and that the President in the State of the Union, on March 7th, stands up for expanding Social Security, eliminating the windfall exemption provision, and really run as a champion of Social Security, which I think he'd be very, very authentic on, and which we could deliver on if he wins and we have the House and the Senate. You know, the Republicans aren't going to do anything on it. So it's that's just the reality. I'm not being partisan. I mean, there's some places the Republicans would support things, but you know.
It's my understanding that HR 82 was introduced by a Republican.
It is, but Mike Johnson's not going to put it up for a vote.
Okay.
I mean, you know, we would get 300 votes in the House for Ukraine aid, but Johnson's not going to put it up for a vote. We would pass the bill that you're talking about, but Johnson's not going to put it up for a vote. So I'm not criticizing the Republicans who co-sponsored or introduced that. They may be very well intentioned, but the reality is that doesn't mean anything if their own leadership isn't going to put that bill up for a vote. And I'd love for Johnson to put it up for a vote, but you know they haven't. We didn't put up our bill for a vote when we had the majority in what I think was a mistake by our leadership, because there were 10 or 12 frontliners who didn't want the bill put up. Frontliners are in sort of moderate districts. So this is an issue that I think we need to put front and center in not just getting rid of the windfall exemption provision, but remind you, expanding Social Security, and you pay for it by getting rid of the cap. I mean, income over $250,000, you can still have the Social Security tax, and that would make Social Security solvent, would allow us to get rid of the windfall exemption provision, and allow us to increase benefits for seniors who are living in very high cost of living areas.
Thank you.
Congressman, we have Robert from Milpitas with a question on funding for special education and mental health.
Thank you. Nice for you to join us back here in the South Bay. My question relates to mental health as well as special education. Certainly, one of the outcomes of COVID is we all became very, very much aware of mental health, the impacts on education, as well as just our well-being. I would like to understand, is there at the federal level any opportunities for school districts to really take advantage of our new awareness in mental health as well as special education, and how do we increase that funding, because that's always been a challenge for school districts?
I appreciate that very much. I do want to say one thing to give the President some credit. With the American Rescue Plan, when we passed that in the Congress, and I was proud to. That was the largest increase of funding for K through 12 schools that we've had in the last 30 years. And now all that money, some of that money was needed for infrastructure, for COVID, and we need more funding. But that was a very significant investment that the president made in K through 12 education. Now the reality is the special needs education, education, we have passed in the Congress a mandate that says that that there has to be certain standards and certain appropriate care for people who have certain special needs in their education. But we've never funded it. We're supposed to fund 40% of that budget, and we fund 10 to 15%. And this is why, and any school board member here knows what I'm talking about, and there's many educators, this is why the school districts are so strapped, because the federal government has not done the funding that they should. Jared Huffman from Marin every year introduces a bill to fully fund the IDEA program and the special needs program, and I sponsored it every year. And that would be one of the biggest things we could do to provide the resources to school districts to deal with a lot of the other programs that they need. And then we should be funding not just at schools, but more broadly, more mental health, wellness centers, and community centers, more counselors, recognizing in a world of social media and the pressures that young people face. I mean, 1/3 of American teenagers who are girls have contemplated suicide. 1/3. That's not me, that's the New York Times. Now, I'm not saying that they get to a point where they need a medical intervention or a hospital, but just they've had that thought. That is a shocking statistic. And that shows that we're failing a generation in terms of the help they need. And by the way, we need to hold these social media companies responsible for the junk they're putting out often and for our own kids and getting them addicted. So I hear you, and I will continue to advocate for those resources.
Hi, Congressman. Dorothy of Santa Clara has a question on funding teachers.
Thank you very much, Congressman Khanna, for holding a meeting every month. I'm talking now about the elephant in the room. Teachers, colleges have not taught teachers how to teach reading. And let me connect that very directly to mental health. The kindergartner, the first grader comes to school, I can't read yet, but by third grade, I can't read. And so we've already heard this morning about people who are incarcerated, who can't read. So let's go to the positive side. If teachers knew how to teach reading, no matter what bad curriculum they're using, they could lift up the kids right now. And fortunately, the organization which invented how to teach kids with dyslexia, Orton Gillingham, in 2014 developed a way to teach teachers how to teach the regular first grade. And so it's out there, and now there are other forms, letters, which the Congress made available to everybody who applied, but only the first 200 could get 2 years free training of letters, which means teachers, while they're teaching, could be taking this online course. So what I'm looking to is to make your district a pilot in which business and individual businessmen and government at each level collaborate to pay for teachers who want to get the training to know how to teach reading. It's called the science of reading, and the details are application of science and structured literacy, learn how to teach kids to sound the words out and breaking them into syllables, and then teach the kids the basic vocabulary that they've got to remember, like the and of. And she also teach them how to get enough vocabulary to be able to understand the story they're reading. So my question is, will you do it?
It sounds great. Tom, can you follow up on, so we can get the exact information of the science of reading? I mean, look, I have a lot of humility in this because as a published author who has written 2 books, one that Simon & Schuster published and one that McGraw-Hill published, I'll tell you that it was a teacher who taught my 6-year-old how to read. I had no ability to do it, and not because he had special needs, because teaching is very hard. It's not, you can't just get up just because you may know how to read or write and say, okay, I'm going to teach you how to read or write. It's a very special skill, and I think this is somehow like we don't respect our teachers enough of how difficult it is to actually do. And so if there are any ways and things that would make that job easier, I'm happy to support it and find out how to support it. Let's get maybe a couple more questions. Yeah, two more comments and questions.
Hey, Congressman. Farhan from Milpitas with a question about higher education for special needs students.
Hi, thank you, Congressman, for continue to provide these forums for engagement. My question is specifically for higher education opportunities. I heard gentlemen asking a question about mental health in general, question about special needs, but focusing on as a parent of 2 special needs kids, the opportunities for these kids to learn more life skills for their professional and job life. And so funding programs for college level education would be nice, and would like to know what Congress is doing to promote funding for these programs.
Well, we did do some in terms of the American Rescue Plan, but we need to do more, and I think what we need to do is to recognize that not everyone is going to need a 4-year degree. Some may, but some may also need a credential, an 18-month course, a type of credential at a community college or college that can get them a job, and that is practical. And one of the big mistakes in our education spending, 400 to 1, is the ratio of what we spend for 4-year college degrees versus apprenticeships or credentials that are less than a 2 or 4-year degree. And we need to really increase the spending on that so that people, based on their interests and based on their ability, can get some credential that allows them to be productive in the workplace. And that's something that we're trying to fund when we have the Congress back.
Any other?
Congressman, I do have a question, yes. Gary from Cupertino with a question on non-public speakers.
Gary has a question that's not about climate?
Right, it's not about climate. Thank you for doing this. I think it's an important topic. You probably know me as somebody who worked in the industry in the Valley. But for 10 years, I actually did teach at a variety of community colleges. And one of the things I was struck with is the struggle that non-English native speakers have with abstract topics of math and physics. And also, you've alluded to it, but the next generation has to be trained on how to determine the veracity of material they're reading or seeing online or on television or even from their friends. And as you brought it up about intelligence, people may not know, but 10% or so, unless it's changed since I've been involved, of the Pentagon budget is actually to the intelligence agencies. So we're spending close to $100 billion a year for the intelligence agencies with $1 billion salaries, et cetera, et cetera. And there is failure, there is severe failure, in my opinion, as to why somebody in this country couldn't identify the risk of the Gaza situation. I think that Congress needs to investigate that.
I appreciate that. I mean, I do think we need to look at our military budget overall. I mean, $1 trillion is what we're almost spending, over 50% of our federal budget on that. I am a consistent no vote on that, and I appreciate your continuing to send me back to Congress and allowing me to vote no, because I'd much rather that we be spending some portion of that budget on our health care, on our education, on climate, and on communities, rather than these forays into Iraq, Afghanistan, and overseas borders. I mean, we've got the most militarized defense budget in decades, and that is, in my view, not the direction that's going to make America strong. Your view is a fair one about looking not just at the intelligence failure in Israel, but looking at the intelligence in our country and why we didn't anticipate a situation that was not out of the blue. I mean, this was a conflict that has been ongoing. And so I appreciate your point, and I appreciate your point about the education. And I'll end with this point. I mean, look, we have a very, very challenging year ahead of us in terms of what's going on in this country and the stakes of our democracy. But ultimately, whatever happens, the fate of American democracy, in my view, rests fundamentally in the hands of our educators. Because the founders knew that it was only a population that was educated about our Constitution, about our traditions, about American civic life, that could uphold and enhance democracy. And so I don't mean this sort of in a cliched way. I really believe that the most important job in terms of restoring some kind of civility, restoring some kind of decency, restoring some ability to talk to each other in our democracy is going to come down to our educators, to educate that new generation to be equipped to do that, and to be equipped to do that when you're being bombarded with misinformation, bombarded with conspiracy theories on cable news and on social media. So it's a hard challenge for the teachers, and it's a hard challenge for their support teams, and it's a hard challenge for our school board members, and I just want to appreciate what all of you are doing for our community and our country, and let you know that you can contact me, you can contact Tom,